I'm so honored to be speaking with Ambassador Anwarul Chowdhury today. I've had the privilege of hearing you speak on 2 previous occasions, and your intense passion for creating a better world is unmistakable. I have personally quoted you several times, but one of my favorite quotes of yours is, "I am proud to be a feminist. All of us need to be. That is how we make our planet a better place to live for all." What event or life experience inspired you to be such a champion for equality?
Well, I would not find a particular incidence or instance to emphasize the value of equality in my life and in my advocacy for women's equality. I believe equality is the very essence of democracy, very essence of progress in life, very important part of making our life better and more happy. So that is why I felt that as a human being, we need to feel that all of us are equal. Because the basic fundamental thought here is that we are all part of one humanity. And we cannot discriminate there, or we cannot have prejudice against each other because of differences in religion, in color, in race, in background, in location around the globe. So that is what I believe, and I felt that this energy for equality came as I grew up. Teachings of my parents, how I interacted with my siblings and friends, and how I could communicate with others. Because I would expect equality from others, and I will give the same equality back to them. So it is my desire for equality that also encouraged me to give the same equality to other people.
Yes, sir, thank you. After hearing you speak and what you said just now, it's so true what you said about equality, that how it should be an expectation, not something that is special. It's how we should treat everyone.
Yes, that is true.
Your passion is also evident in the articles that you have written and in the quotes of others who comment on your dedication to peace and equality. I recently read your opinion piece, Critical Next Steps in Enhancing Women's Equality and Empowerment, and I was fascinated by the discussion on women leading anti-violence movements. If the goal is gender equality, how important is female participation in these movements towards reaching that goal?
I believe that as the 50% of humanity, women's role and contributions are so obvious, so natural, that it has to be made part of any human endeavor that we do. If women are marginalized in any human endeavor, I can tell you that endeavor will not succeed. Women have to become a part of all the efforts that humanity makes to improve itself. They need to have equal role with men at the decision-making levels everywhere. It is very important. It's not a token equality. It's not a nominal participation. It is equality in every sense of the term. And that equality can be established through equality of participation. We can guarantee women equality in our constitutions, in our laws, in all the formal documentation. But how do we reflect that in our day-to-day work? That is where their participation is important. If we have equal number of women in the parliaments, if we have equal number of women in the cabinets, if we have equal number of women working in various institutions, entities, departments, then we can expect that whatever decision is taken there, it reflects the totality of humanity. It is not seen only from the masculine angle. And we have seen also women bring in a lot of energy, the caring and nurturing, and their perceptions about how the world should make progress is much more inclusive than men. And that is very important. To make the world a better place, we need to work together. And that ability to work with others comes so naturally from women. I have seen this personally in my experiences working with the poorest countries of the world, in Africa, Asia, Latin America. And there, women, whenever they found, in most cases because of the challenges that they face, women have become their own sort of determinants of their role, because they feel that we will not get this role automatically. So they are trying to establish their rights. We see the women empowered by microcredit in countries like Bangladesh and many other African countries. These women have decided to take up the challenges of poverty eradication, challenges of fundamentalism, challenges of male domination in the decision making. And I think they are succeeding. But it is much better if we can do this ourselves together. If men can also join in these efforts for women's equality. I think that is very important. So it's not so much of a movement, it is a reality which needs to be recognized. It's a reality which needs to be recognized in the best interest of our nations, our societies, our communities. That is how world will be a better place. And I say this like, I will elaborate a little bit with a practical example. A human being takes about 27,000 times inhaling and exhaling breaths. And that is only 50% of the capacity of our lungs. If the remaining 50% was used by every human being, he or she will be a more healthy person, more full of energy, full of positive intentions. They will change this, full capacity will change their health and naturally their minds also. Same with humanity. We are using, by marginalizing women, we are using only 50% of the capacity that the world has to improve itself. Bring in women, work with them together, and you will see the world will be a healthier, more energized place for all of us. So humanity will benefit. Not that bringing in women will work against the interest of humanity. Why not? Let us give it a try. This high time that we should do proactively, consciously and resolutely to assert the equality that women have, inherent equality that women have, recognize that, give them a place and benefit from it.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. That was very well put and explained ethically and physiologically.
Yes.
How has past female participation in these movements, such as the International Congress in The Hague, which resulted in WILF, and the more recent nuclear freeze movement aided in promoting peace and equality?
Well, I believe that despite efforts by men to marginalize women's participation, women have organized themselves and the international community very well in the number of things that they did, as you mentioned. But a key role has been continued to be played by Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, WILF, as you mentioned. And that organization is one of the oldest, 100+ years in existence. It has worked worldwide and now very deeply engaged in banning the nuclear weapons. And the United Nations is now negotiating a treaty to ban nuclear weapons. They are involved very much. They are involved in women's rights and equality in a big way. But I have worked with WILF for many years, since the Security Council of the United Nations passed the Resolution 1325, titled Women and Peace and Security. And that resolution was initiated by me when I was the President of the Security Council in March 2000. I had been campaigning for bringing women's role in peace and security at the level of Security Council, which was not possible, and this was done more enthusiastically since 1995, since the Beijing Conference on Women. But it was not possible. But in 2000, my country, Bangladesh, became a member of the Security Council, and in March 2000, I became the President of the Security Council. So I thought this was a big opportunity, and to bring in that dimension of peace and security work that is done by the United Nations. And I had some experience in seeing women at the grassroots level, how they have contributed in a tremendous way to peace and security in the world, and also in their community level. So their recognition was necessary, not only recognition of their work, but also benefit from their contribution to promote peace and security. And that is what is happening now. We adopted a resolution on that subject in October 2000. From then onwards, it has been almost 17 years. We have been trying to encourage countries to prepare a national action plan to promote women's role in peace and security and women's equality at all decision-making levels at the country level. So the countries are required to prepare a national action plan. But it is very unfortunate that out of 193 members of the UN, only 63 have prepared their national action plan so far in 17 years. That's a big disappointment. And we need to ensure that all countries prepare their national action plan as soon as possible. And I would say maybe in next 2 years' time, they should come up with 100 more national action plans. That will still be not the all membership, but still close to it. So this is very necessary. We need to ensure. And also another area which needs attention in terms of women's equality is the equality at the decision-making levels at the United Nations. Now we have 9 Secretaries General of the UN in its 71 years of life. no women have been yet elected as Secretary General. This is again a tremendous disappointment for the international community that we have not been able to find a leader of the United Nations from amongst 50% of humanity. So we need to continue that focus, but we need also equal participation of women at other levels, particularly at the senior management level, as Under Secretary General, as Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. United Nations is speaking up for women's equality, but it has to also lead by example. It has to show other people that we have done it. It's not just we are vocalizing it, we are preaching it, but not believing in it. So that is very important. So that is another area that we are focusing. We need to have more women ambassadors to the United Nations offices in New York and in Geneva. Out of 193 countries, there are about 35 women ambassadors. Why not the countries nominate women to become ambassador here? I think UN decision-making process will be much better if they are representing their countries here. So this is a long way off, but as I say that the challenges to women's equality continue to mutate, continue to remain there in one form or the other. And that is why. And then in this context, I would emphasize very strongly the negative forces of militarism and militarization against women's equality. I think they not only are causing or setting back the women's equality process, but also they are destroying our planet in terms of environmental preservation, in terms of capacity of people to live their life without being affected by negative forces of war and conflict.
Thank you. That was an incredible answer. In the same piece, you also mentioned the inevitability of retaliation towards the gender equality movement. How should everyday women and girls respond to this, and what can we do to assist in furthering this movement?
Well, as I said towards the end of my response to the last question, that challenges and obstacles to women's equality efforts continue to emerge, one form or the other. There had been efforts of rolling back the progress we made. There had been efforts also to stall progress. We have seen that the things which were considered as a progress in the past has now suddenly started facing new obstacles. So the constant vigilance is necessary on our part, both women and men. I think it is very important for men to become also champion for women's cause, because if they mean good for humanity, they have to be inclusive. Men should not believe that we can deliver. No, they cannot. It has to be done together, women and men. So that is what we say, that we have women and men, we have the power to empower, and we have to do it together. That is very important. We cannot leave anyone behind. As we talk about leaving no one behind, we have to understand that applies to women also in general, who are, I think, through our patriarchal attitude and policies, have left them behind in a big way. So we have to remove those, we have to bring them up, and we say that women have sometimes no understanding of this area, not available in many areas with equal competence. No. Women's competence as well as men's competence lies in their commitment, in their energy, in their determination to do good. Yes, degrees are important when you do a technical job, but basic foundational requirement for any job to be done well is commitment. Commitment to do good. And without that, you may have the best degrees in the world, but you will not. We have seen all the mess around the world is made by all the very well-educated graduates from these big universities. They are the decision makers. But see what situation the world is in. So we need, and I believe that sometimes, and this is a separate point, but I believe that sometimes we kind of ignore that the education given by the universities of the poorest countries of the world. Because education is very important and it can come from anywhere. So it does not have to be globally well-recognized universities. Yes, there are certain standards which people follow, but we have got very notable leaders who come from their learning in a very unknown school or college of a farthest corner of the world. So that also, that inclusivity is very important, that we should know that a person with determination and with a mission to do good can achieve results. And we have seen that. We have seen that in Mahatma Gandhi. We have seen that in Nelson Mandela. We have seen it in Martin Luther King Jr. So these are very important points that we should remember in terms of equality, in terms of inclusiveness, in terms of progress of humanity. So those are the points that I would like to emphasize. Do not relent, do not give up easily, do not slow down in terms of your asking for equality. And I say this always to both younger people, both women and men, that you need to be committed to equality for getting the benefit from that commitment. If you give up, it will hit you back hard and against your interest. So equality is something that needs to be kept in the forefront. But also I should say that as women have been marginalized for so many years in all societies of the world, no country can claim today that our country has total equality. Both notional, structural and actual. And that is very important. And so that's why everywhere we need to work together to achieve that equality which will make our world a better place.
You mentioned about how being an effective leader and being successful does not come from going to a big name university or an Ivy League school, and you backed that up with many historical examples that prove that point is very true. What qualities besides the ones that you mentioned have enabled people to be successful without the typical things that my generation and really everyone believes creates a successful leader?
I think we have also to understand the leadership should not be misunderstood as being leading a group or leading an organization or being ahead of others and telling other people to do something. Leader is where you can bring in the energy of others together. Leadership is where you can sort of put the best of everybody in the forefront. So leadership, I believe leadership is also ability to work together with others. And I think that is the message I want to convey to the young people. Do not get the so-called traditional concept of leadership in your head. Leadership is changed. The definition of leadership should be changed, where we all work together. We are all leaders, but we agree to give somebody a role to coordinate that. So that is today's leader. Because gone are the days where a leader is the commander-in-chief in the army who undertakes an invasion of another country and gets victorious, and that is a leader. No, leader is how we work with other people together. And that is what, if you can create and bring in an energy of number of people, many people around you, you are a leader.
Obviously, as you've mentioned and proved, the ethical component of leadership is very important, and that brings me to what you mentioned earlier about how certain political bodies and people of power are stalling the equality movement. Can you give any specific examples of that occurring?
Well, it's no use giving examples, negative examples. I would give you positive examples. I would say that I have seen in the communities in West Africa how women have managed their societies, social institutions, how women have put food on the table, how women have sent their children to school while the country is engaged in a civil war, where men are all fighting in the bushes. Women ran their societies, make their life as normal as possible. And that is a positive example for us to be proud of. That, and many of these are uneducated women. But they knew that it is important to have children their regular education, to get the health services that they needed. So they didn't wait for men to come back and sort of tell them what to do. They took over. And then in many cases I found when the men come back from war, they find the society is moving. Women have started taking decisions, and then they feel a little bit antagonistic, a little bit let down, and want to subvert that role of women who have already taken. So that is a reality. We have seen the largest number of women in the world parliament, among the parliaments of the world, is in Rwanda, an African country which has the worst massacre in the history of humankind. 64% of Rwandan parliament is women. So this tells us, and in many of the industrialized countries have much lower figure of women's representation in their parliaments. So it is very important to understand that we should learn from each other. Every country has one or the other positive things to tell us. We should not automatically think some countries as only the model. I believe that this is what humanity should learn. They should develop this eagerness of learning from each other. Here I would like to bring in another concept which is very essential for humanity. To believe, and this is more true for young people like you, that every one of us should feel and behave like a global citizen. We are part of that community. We should understand and have sensitivity to the happenings outside our national boundaries. We should know what is happening in the world and should have empathy for that world, that situation. And we should be able to communicate with them. We should be able to help them. We should also understand that each and every work or act I do has a positive or a negative impact on the world. We are no longer countries with strict boundaries where things do not go. Yes, human beings cannot go without a visa or a passport, but problems go. We have what we call problems without borders, problems without passports. Think about drug trafficking. Think about health challenges, Ebola, and all kinds of diseases. Think about child trafficking or trafficking in general. Think about conflict. They go around. Think about money laundering. All these things have no boundaries. So we should know, and now climate change has an impact on the world as a whole. And the countries which have contributed least to climate change are the worst sufferers. Like my country, Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries of the world. 1/3 of the country will go down into the sea if the water level rises 1 foot more. And that is happening, sea level rise is happening because of climate change, global warming. So I say that we should understand that if we do something to conserve our environment here, it will have a positive effect on other parts. Simple thing, when you are going out of your room, if you decide to switch off the light, you should know that that simple action has helped another maybe village in Africa to have a light switched on. It's as simple as that. And we should know that. If I do not recycle the papers that I use, I think more trees are getting cut in other parts of the world. And that is causing again environmental degradation. So global citizenship is that connection with the rest of the world, where you feel not only empathy, but also you do something which way you can help the world as a whole. So that connection is very important, and you can do positive things. You can connect with a student from another country to see how you can know their culture and history. So these are the things that you can do as a global citizen.
You've had a long career and served as a leader of many UN boards and councils. You have had a major influence on important UN resolutions, including Resolution 1325, which you mentioned earlier, which addressed the needs for women's equality. From the time you first became involved with the UN until now, do you think that the UN is more or less effective as an organization in dealing with today's problems than it was at the beginning of your career?
Well, you were not born even when I came to this city, 1972. I came to the United Nations with the application for Bangladesh's membership to this organization. And since then, for the last 45 years almost, I have been engaged in the multilateral diplomacy of the world. I have been working at the United Nations, for the United Nations, with the United Nations in many capacities. And the last one was my role as the Under Secretary General and High Representative of the United Nations, responsible for the most vulnerable countries of the world, the least developed countries, the landlocked countries, and the small island developing states. These are the poorest countries of the world in different ways, and they are the most vulnerable in terms of the negative forces of the world, be it climate change, be it economic depression, be it labor migration, all kinds of things. And conflict has been the worst in most of these countries. So I believe that the basic role of the United Nations, as reflected in the Charter of the United Nations, is to provide an opportunity to have a happier life and have economic and social development. And I think I can say, because when Bangladesh was, it was most devastated country. But every aspect of Bangladesh has been contributed to by the efforts of the United Nations. Be it health services, be it roads and highways, be it education system, be it telecommunication, be it parliamentary democratic system, everything has been supported. All aspects of Bangladesh's life, as you see today, has been affected by the United Nations in a positive way. So this is what I say, that people do not recognize this role of the United Nations in improving the quality of life of people in all parts of the world. And as I said, I dealt with these most vulnerable countries, and I know how they are beholden to the United Nations for their role. But unfortunately, United Nations is known mostly by its failure. Wherever they failed, that became a big news. Where they have succeeded, it's not a news anymore, because that success is affecting individual lives, and the political failures are affecting the big, powerful countries. So that's why that becomes a big news. And political failure, of course, cost human lives in many cases. So that is why, but UN's role, UN's resources, 80% of resources are spent on economic and social development. But we know very little about them. We know only, as I said, only about the issues of failure of the United Nations. So in that way, I think we need, and this day and age of technology and communication, we need to profile the United Nations in a different way. But you asked me whether UN has become more effective or not. I think when I came in and over the years I have seen a gradual deterioration in terms of willingness of the membership to give and take, to accommodate each other's point of view. Now I think only take and take. I will not give in anything, but I will extricate my price. I want this and this only. I cannot give in. So that element of accommodating each other, because this is a global place, we cannot just say that it is a place for one country to have its way. So we have to see that brought back. When I came in, I found at least there is some willingness to do that. So that is gone. Another thing I think which I am pained to see, that the people who work for the United Nations, the vast number of people who serve the UN bureaucracy have somehow distanced themselves or gone further away from the main mission of the United Nations, to do good for humanity. And that somehow has not sunk in, or not as sunk in as it was in the past. So people take it here, they work here in a very narrow sense. This is my work and I do it. But they do not connect that job description with the bigger mission of the United Nations. So that is again another thing that I believe is something which I regret and I feel bad about. But still, it is the most universal organization in the world. It has all the countries of the world as members, and I think this is a place where we can come and talk out, dialogue with each other, and not engage in fist fights. So that is the big benefit, and we should understand. And UN leadership should understand that. And UN leadership, the Secretary General and his senior management should be much more proactive in addressing the challenges of the world. And they should not forget that the poorest and the weakest countries should be and are their biggest responsibility.
This really reiterates and exemplifies the critical nature of empathy and the ability to exhibit that characteristic in leadership and in all decision making.
Yes.
And also this brings forth the point about the media and the problems in the media and the disillusionment that it causes with people and the general ideas about big organizations like the UN and other governing bodies.
That's very true. This point about media is very important. I think media has a responsibility to highlight the work of the United Nations, to highlight the need for our world to feel as a one human family.
Yes, sir. I believe in today's world it is incredibly critical that all people have role models. Since I met you here at the UN when I was 13, you have been a role model to me. Are there people that you have met that you admire that continue to influence your decision making when you need guidance?
Well, I continue to admire all well-meaning people who want to, big or small, big name or small names, doesn't matter. But a person, well-intentioned person, willing to do his or her own contribution is my role model. I think that is very important. I am inspired by, of course, the leaders for peace, leaders promoting non-violence, leaders promoting equality. These are the champions and I try to follow them. But also I should say that rather than following them, I have learned a lot from them. So there are many people from whom I have learned, and I am most grateful to them for allowing me to benefit from their work. So this I believe has been an inspiration to me all the time. Knowing about them, knowing about their challenges, and knowing about how they handle those challenges has been a big thing for me in my work.
If you could go back in time and give your 17-year-old self pieces of advice, what would they be?
I was trying to see when I was 17, I think yes, United Nations was already born in 1945. And I believe that that is a wonderful thing, that if we had the exposure to the United Nations, like as I was 17 at that time, I believe that I always carry with me, and I would recommend this to me as a 17-year-old, as you ask, but all 17-year-olds and younger people maybe. These 4 booklets with me all the time, because I believe that these are inspirational, most inspirational booklets of the world. One is the Charter of the United Nations, which is the humanities Magna Carta. I think this is the most important booklet that humanity has to benefit from. Then I carry also the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the basic document for equality amongst all of us, and that we as human beings have some very fundamental basic rights. So these are ingrained, and this is absolutely a must for us to recognize. Then I have third document, which is Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And I believe that this is again a very strong statement on equality between women and men. And that is very important. This is necessary for all of us to not only read but to internalize with ourselves. This is a reality we cannot avoid. And then finally, fourth one is the UN Declaration on the Culture and Program of Action on the Culture of Peace. This was adopted in 1999 on 13th of September, and I was the chairman of the drafting committee, which negotiated this document for 9 months to adopt it by consensus. This is the only document of the United Nations which has been adopted by consensus, other than the Charter of the United Nations, focusing on peace and security and human development in the best possible way. It has 8 areas of action. It focuses on education, on economic and social development, sustainable development, on human rights, equality between women and men, tolerance, solidarity, and equality. It has focus on international peace and security. It has focus on democratic participation. So all these are there. It's a simple booklet, but contains the future potential of the United Nations, of the world as a whole. So I believe that these booklets should be carried by all young people, and not only physically carried, but understood also, and realize how valuable these are for humanity, for us to understand as a global citizen. So I think if I was 17-year-old now, I would say I want to be recognized as a global citizen, promoting the culture of peace.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time and your continued dedication to making the world a better place and inspiring us all.
Thank you, and most welcome. I look forward to young people like you to pick up the responsibilities of making our world a better place.